All right.
Man,
Hey there,
Kyle.
Henry. How's it going?
Good, man. I want to go to Andorra, man.
I definitely wouldn't mind a Europe trip at the moment. This is the best time, October.
Really?
Mhm.
I've never been there.
All right. Welcome everyone for everyone who's joining. I think we like to get started and just have everyone pop into the chat and say where you're calling in from. We'll see where everyone is. Henry and I are both in Los Angeles. Fortunately, we've gotten a little bit of rain the last few days, which we always need, but now that's over. We'll go back to our drought. Okay, here we go. We got oh man, we've got all over continental US,
Man, we got Tel
Chicago,
Aviv.
Idaho, Austin,
Yeah.
Indiana, South Carolina, Tel Aviv. That's cool.
Chicago,
Toronto, we got some
Virginia.
Canadian representation. Love it. Virginia.
George is gonna love you, James. Virginia representing.
All right, well maybe wait just to
Go
go Blue
Blue
Jays.
Jays.
Nice. We'll just wait maybe a couple more minutes to let people join, and then we'll go ahead and get started, do some intros. But let's see if we can't wait for a few more people to join.
Yeah, the rain was nice. Hopefully we get more of it.
Hopefully, but that's it's a big hope from LA.
Yeah. Yeah, 2 years ago, man, it was like raining like every other week for a while. It was really nice.
Yeah, I remember getting reports on that. Remember, I was out of the country at the time.
Oh yeah, that's right. Yeah, yeah,
It
UK.
was kind of wild. I was actually in London at the time, and you guys were getting more rain than London was, which was kind of ironic.
Yeah, 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 yeah.
All right. Well, Henry, it's been a couple minutes. We've got quite a bit of people already here. I think we'll probably have some more people joining us as we go along. Maybe we go ahead and get started on intros and people can catch up as they join.
Yeah, yeah, sounds good. Let's get started. So, well, why don't we start off with a little background on Panda blocks? There we go. So, thank you everyone for joining. We have lots to cover and we want to make time for Q&A, so we'll just jump right in. Quick introduction on Panda blocks. At the core, we're a private AI platform and we have data operations wrapped around it. The goal is to simplify data for growing mid-market companies. We're celebrating our 8-year anniversary this year with the acquisition of our sister company, 3GC Group. Now, combined with their data service desk offering, we provide the full enterprise data operations to unlock AI that only Fortune 500 companies are doing today. Our products are designed and led by former experienced CXOs of these fine logos here. So both of our technology and business experience is baked into our solution. Let's go to we'll jump into our personal introduction. So a little bit about me. I'm the founder and CEO. I started my career many, many years ago, maybe 25 years ago, with background in investment banking and M&A. Then I've had 23 years as a tech entrepreneur. This all gives me a very different perspective than most technology companies. My job here is to make sure we bake in business value to all of our offerings. That's vastly different than engineering-led companies. So I've led the company through many technology evolutions, from DevOps to blockchain to AI. But what really keeps me going is our team culture. We have a very innovative culture here, a lot of very close-knit culture. So we've had a lot of fun throughout these years. Kyle?
Yeah, thanks, Henry. Nice to meet everyone. My name's Kyle Mlar-Corliss, and I'm the VP of Product and Biz Dev over here at PandoBlocks. My background, as I kind of mentioned earlier, I just moved back from London a little bit ago. Been working in B2B SaaS companies for the last 7 or 8 years. and am intimately familiar with the challenges around data. And for the last few years have been working on AI proof of concepts and bringing those solutions into production. But today we're going to cover 4 key topics that I think will change how you think about your data. So first, we'll talk about the common mistakes companies make when trying to fix reporting and data challenges, the ones that can waste time and money and sometimes just create a lot of headaches for you. Then we'll dig into how to unlock 10x more value from your data with multi-source strategic reporting. And I'll explain what that actually looks like in practice. Next, we'll show you how Themis makes AI-powered business intelligence possible with a real NetSuite case study that takes us from manual reporting to those multi-source insights. And finally, we'll wrap up with a clear roadmap to getting AI-ready data, including an assessment and consultation, and how that can help you take the first step. So we're dropping a link in the chat. The first 3 registrants for the 30-minute consultation receive our AI data readiness assessment for free, a 5K deliverable. So definitely jump in quickly there before those 3 slots are gone. They go fast. All right, Henry, why don't we go ahead and get started? I'll pass it off to you. Or actually, I'll pass it off to myself. Let's start with some really sobering statistics here that I think quantify the real cost of disconnected data. And these numbers come from recent studies by the Association for Financial Professionals, from statistics from McKinsey, and other leading data quality research organizations. So finance and operations teams typically spend about a quarter of their time on manual data collection and report preparation, often a full week per month waiting on compiled reports. So what looks like a few hours by 1 or 2 people is usually distributed work across teams and sometimes locations. Now, we've seen this firsthand with one of the CEOs we've worked with, who thought his department heads were spending maybe an hour a week pulling reports. But in reality, the process stretched across multiple departments. That was finance, operation, even the COO's own team, with several full-time employees spending most of their week just compiling, cleaning, and reconciling numbers. So this was a lot of overhead that was hidden at the management level that was being required to produce a lot of the reports. And here's the kicker too, around 40% of those manual reports include at least one major error. Now, if you think you're gonna hire your way out of that problem, a fully staffed data team easily runs about $2 million per year across a lot of scarce and highly skilled roles, from DevOps and DevSecOps to data engineering to data scientists, and then even all the way up to a data architect. Now, these aren't just inefficiencies, they're strategic constraints that is really going to slow your growth and cloud your decision making.
Yeah, and I know that $2 million estimate for the enterprise data team seems really high. It's actually a very conservative estimate for companies that are in the 200 million to 2 billion in revenue range. It would be less for a mid-sized company that's under 200 million, but it's still a very significant number that you've got to consider if you really want to get the data right. There's a huge disparity between what tools and capabilities large enterprise have with their data versus the mid enterprise today. And that disparity, we're trying to close that gap.
Mm-hmm. And we see this across lots of industries, but these costs create 4 critical pain points that we see across those industries and across company sizes as well. So first is delayed decision-making. Why should you wait until your monthly close process to access critical business insights? That delayed reporting can create really dangerous blind spots when the markets are moving really quickly. And I'm sure, as everyone feels in today's day and age, with AI moving everything so fast, those cycles are only accelerating. Second, manual reports don't scale. So as your business grows, those Excel spreadsheets and manual processes become increasingly time-consuming and error-prone. You're just going to have to keep adding more and more people, which is going to compound a lot of those errors that we see within the data. Most of your insights will be siloed. So sales sees one version, finance has their own, operations is working off of a third. No one is really sitting across all that data, and therefore no one really sees the full picture. So alignment across the organization can break down. And the way that that kind of manifests is you're sitting in a boardroom and everyone is kind of arguing about, well, arguing for what their number is. And ultimately, what ends up happening is you're reactive rather than proactive to a lot of what's happening in your business. You're not actually looking ahead, doing some of that predictive or prescriptive analytics for the business. You're just reacting to what you're seeing behind. And as we've identified, usually in a delayed manner. So that brings us to our first poll. We want to dive a little deeper today into the audience, but let's get a quick pulse check on where everyone is. This question asks, what's your biggest data challenge today? There's quite a few options there, but we really want to focus on your biggest pain point. So we've got a few options here: manual collecting of data, disconnected systems, can't trust your reports, don't have the teams or tools. And this one we get a lot, actually, this last one. We're being asked to implement AI, but don't have the team or tools to do it. Not that I'm encouraging anyone to put that if that's not the case, but curious to see what that is. Leave this up for a couple seconds. I think, Henry, what we typically see is that most companies face multiple challenges simultaneously, but there's usually one that's the biggest pain point preventing them from scaling, growing, looking and tracking their performance, etc.
Yeah. And I'd say probably the most common one is there's some good numbers there. Yeah, our data lives in too many disconnected systems. That's probably the most common. Yeah. Yeah, this is pretty consistent.
It's interesting. We've run this poll a few times, and very, consistent in the sense that number, 1 and 2 options are the highest. But I would say maybe a bigger amount kind of focused in on that. So we're definitely in 1 and 2 the mix is a little heavier towards that group. It's interesting.
Yeah. Thanks for everyone for your input.
Yep. Thank you. All right, Henry.
Yeah. So let's talk about some real business impact points. So, for example, on sales and inventory blind spots, this translates to demand planning, then maturing into sales and operations planning. The enterprises that do this right, like Coca-Cola and Procter and Gamble, they spend more money on their data infrastructure than most companies make in a year. So, this is a really big problem for mid-cap companies, but we can help you do this for less than the cost of an admin. So when it comes to financial uncertainty, we all know that cash flow management in growth mode while experimenting with new product lines is extremely challenging. So in these kind of situations, you need to get ahead of historical financial data, get as much operational data correlated together to get some form of predictability. So for example, best practice in a 14-week cash flow, you need to take into account sales, supply, AR and AP changes in real time, and to get that in real time, even on a weekly basis, it's just way too time consuming if you don't have the right tools. When it comes to measuring down to the customer and promotion is next to impossible, just looking at transactional data. So for example, you need to get immediate feedback on the effectiveness of promotions while combining that with cost and sales lift data. Trying to do this in real time is impossible without enterprise tools. Just getting it once a week is a ton of man hours, and then they're prone to manual errors, which can take a lot of time to unravel. So you can't just trust gut alone. You have to build team confidence around these types of data visibilities. So
sorry, go ahead.
You want to add something? Go ahead.
Yeah, I was just going to add, that last point there, Henry, which is, without accurate, timely data, you find yourself facing, critical business decisions on intuition rather than intelligence. And obviously that can be really, really challenging or dangerous without doing, some really, really focusing on the data.
Agreed. Yeah, let's go to the next slide. So here's a quote from Pat Turpin. He's one of our board members, and he was founder of Pop Chips. He's on the board of many companies, and he knows firsthand what it's like to grow and exit a business. So, he was early on in the development with us on this. We have many ideas for our platform features after talking to him. He's had a lot of experience firsthand putting in that first enterprise application, that first ERP, and wow, he's had a lot of trials and tribulations. The thing that we identified with him is he had a lot of issues because he didn't have the correct data infrastructure and the right data, and you need data teams in order to do that. So a lot of these nightmares that everyone hears about ERP, I mean, they're true. There are a lot of private equity groups that just won't buy a company that's in the middle of an ERP implementation, right? It's like they talk about it about the referencing the heart transplant. It's really that extreme. But one of the things that we realize is that it's if you have the right data and you have the right systems with the data, they're not that imposing, they're not that dramatic. But there are a lot of companies that we notice they're trying to exit before they get this data right. Now, what happens to those companies is the M&A industry knows it too. And what ends up happening is these companies get devalued because they don't have the data right. Some of the statistics that we talk about with various different investment bankers, M&A professionals, both buy side, sell side, they all agree that it's about one turn of valuation if you don't have that data right. We're talking millions here for a mid-cap company, right? That's at stake. We'll be talking at length about this in our next webinar, November 6th. We'll be discussing this with Pat, and the topic's going to be about getting companies M&A ready with data. We'll be including an invitation to this when we send the recording out of this webinar. Kyle?
Yep. So many of you might be thinking, why can't BI tools solve this issue? Or, you might also be sitting there going, we've tried BI tools like Power BI, Tableau, Looker, lots of different options out there. Why weren't we able to solve this problem with those tools? And the fundamental issue comes down to pretty dashboards on dirty data still give you dirty insights. I love that quote. But this is the classic adage, bad data in, bad data out. And the reason for that is, dashboards aren't the foundation. They're the last mile. So BI tools will amplify whatever data you feed them. If you give it messy, inconsistent inputs, you get dashboards that look great, but will tell the wrong story. So it's fast, pretty, but unfortunately, it can be wrong. And the reason that happens is traditional BI tools depend entirely on the quality of your source data. So if the inputs are inaccurate or incomplete, the dashboards only visualize those same errors, just in a more polished format. They typically struggle to handle large, complex data sets across multiple systems. So performance slows down and users start losing trust in what they see. On top of that, BI tools carry a lot of hidden overhead. So there's the obvious licensing costs, but then there's consultants and constant maintenance to keep them working and up to date. They also require sometimes significant in-house expertise just to get consistent outputs. And even then, success rates can be low if the business users aren't involved in that process. So many companies will spend 9 to 12 months building dashboards only to realize they've automated bad data instead of fixing the underlying issues. Now with Themis and our data management platform, we flip that model. So we start with the foundation, a lot of automated data checks, cleansing, and transformations in the warehouse layer, so that the BI and eventually, when you're ready for it, the AI, both operate on trusted, standardized, and scalable data. This means you spend less time on overhead, you get insights faster, and actually get a reliable data environment that scales as you grow. So ultimately, what Themis does is fix the foundation first, and then only then do the dashboards and the AI deliver the value that they promise.
Yeah. So BI companies, they do a great job on marketing their tools, and I know it looks really fancy. What they don't tell you is the heavy lift in data administration you'll need to manage this. It's not as easy as Excel, and you can't get Excel jockeys to fix this. Some of the things that people don't realize is that 70 to 80% of the BI implementation is actually not technology. It's really behind the scenes in the organizational change management and getting that data right, as Kyle was talking about. it takes a lot of work to do that. And you can't get analysts, you can't get data admins, and you definitely can't get engineers to fix this. It's a big problem.
Also, I'll just do a quick aside. We're getting some questions in the chat, which is great. People can keep putting their questions in the chat or in the Q&A section. We'll probably compile all of those and wait till the end, and then we'll address that in the Q&A section. So thank you for putting in your questions. Really appreciate that. I think talking about BI tools is a good segue into asking the audience about their current tech stack. So yep, just saw the poll pop up. This poll asks about the tools and systems you're currently using. On this one, you can select multiple options as opposed to the other one. But I think this gives us a good sense of where you're starting from, whether you're on spreadsheets, you have BI tools, or already have some infrastructure and integrations in place. I think the principles we're about to discuss will apply universally across wherever you are on your journey. So leave that up for a couple seconds.
Yeah, a lot of companies are using BI right now. Remy, great question. We'll get into that. That's a very popular question. There's a big difference. I wouldn't be surprised there's some people trying to automate things using Snowflake, Databricks, and other automation tools. That's also a problem if you don't have the data processes right in the back end. And it's not that difficult. There's a lot of templates that we have, a lot of formats that really show the process of getting that data right. All right, wow. Look at that. Salesforce, NetSuite, and Quickbooks is the most popular. Yeah.
That's not so surprising, but definitely represents, I think, a little more maturity in the audience.
Yeah.
A lot of people using BI tools.
And then BI tools is next. So this is perfect for our platform. Those and the customers who are and the companies out there using Snowflake, Azure, AWS. We can help out there too. So I think those three are the top three.
And I'm also seeing, thanks, Pete. Sorry you're having you didn't see the polls, but appreciate you kind of chiming in there using all of the tools above. That's great. Okay, keep moving along here. So I think this brings us to the most important concept today. And I think back to what you're saying, Henry, about Rem Evans' question. I think we're going to address it a little bit, but we'll come back and make sure that we circle and really pinpoint this question or talk about it more in the Q&A. But this concept today that we're going to talk about is how do you unlock 10x value through data integration? And integration doesn't just add value, it's a true multiplier effect. So strategic insights emerge from data intersections, not from individual sources. And the more sources that you connect, the more that data integration leads to this idea of exponential strategic insights. So if you think about some of your systems, like a NetSuite, a Salesforce, a Shopify, a lot of, which I think from the poll, a lot of people have, maybe even your customer support system, all of those things start to really add up for the strategic insights that you can define. Some examples would be how are products driving labor inefficiencies? Which of my customers are profitable over a time? And definitely, if you bring in multiple systems, you can start to have a fully burdened view of that cost or that profitability by customer. So you incorporate your fully burdened customer acquisition cost, your cost to support those customers, et cetera. So by bringing in lots of different systems, you can kind of add to the overall view of that customer. And if I kind of run through just an example here, let me show you what that 10x insight really means. So one of our manufacturing clients integrated payroll, accounting, and their actual production data. So on the surface or in the aggregate, each system looked fine. But once connected, the story really started to unfold. 60% of their overtime was being driven by just a handful of SKUs. In the aggregate, their margin was average, but by drilling down to the SKU level, they could see which ones were performing and which ones were underperforming. And by spotting that hidden pattern, they were able to optimize their scheduling, they adjusted their product mix, think they, turned off a couple SKUs even, and they were able to save over $2 million annually. So a significant amount. And that's what exponential insights really look like. You only see it when multiple systems are intersecting. And I think this really demonstrates the progression from linear insights with one system to comparative insights with two systems, but then to that exponential strategic insights with three or more systems.
Yeah. Yeah. And I know all of these systems that represented here, NetSuite, Salesforce, Shopify, they have Gen AI features. So, there's a lot of cool features that everyone's coming out with around Gen AI. But the problem is it's only on their data, right? So it's when you integrate these disparate data sources together to come up with your own business KPIs to operate with, that's when the 10x value unlocks.
I'm looking at the chat. We got a funny one in there. So in the beginning, I promised that we would delve into the multi-source strategic reporting and what it means. So let me explain that with this slide. Most companies stop at the transactional reporting. They know what happened. So my revenue was $2 million this quarter. We sold 1,000 units, or my profit margin was 15%. That's helpful and that's very important, but it's not enough. These are single source metrics, typically from a finance or ERP system, giving you a historical snapshot. What they don't tell you, though, is why those numbers moved or what to do next. That's where the strategic multi-source reporting comes in. So when you connect data sources across systems, finance, CRM, marketing, operations, you start uncovering a lot of business drivers. Again, we talked about customer acquisition costs. You can see that increased 40% due to a shift in my channel mix. 60% of my churn is linked to product delays. Marketing spend shifts can boost lifetime value by 20%. These are all really interesting results that you get from that multi-source strategic reporting. It gives you answers with context. So it's not just metrics, but real insights. And that's what I think ultimately the executive is looking for. Why are we seeing this trend? What's causing the friction? Where should we act next? The advantage is that strategic reporting reveals why things happened and then what to do next. You stop reacting to numbers and start making proactive data-backed decisions, which we identified was a really important pain point in the beginning. All right. And this 10x insight pattern works consistently across lots of different industries. So in retail, when you connect inventory, sales, and marketing data, you can accurately predict demand and make smarter decisions about what to stock and when. In healthcare, the way we see this play out is if you bring together patient data, billing information, and operational results, it can become a really powerful way to optimize care and improve outcomes for your patients. In the legal services industry, when you bring together matter management, which is tracking documents, people, and then their corresponding activities, if you combine that with time tracking and billing information, you can drive some real operational efficiency. In SaaS and tech businesses, if you look at usage across your product or support activity with your customer success teams, and then your billing information, you can start to predict churn and spot maybe where there's room to grow in the form of upsells or renewals, et cetera. And then lastly, in financial services, when you combine transactional data, CRM insights, and layer on key life events for your users, you might be able to spot the perfect moment to upsell or cross-sell before the customer even asks. So the pattern here is universal. The most valuable business insights exist at the intersection of your data sources, not just one data source.
Yeah, I love that. I love that quote, Kyle. So the most valuable business insights exist at the intersection of your departmental data sources. I love that. We gotta trademark that.
Yeah, I think we introduced that a little while ago, and the trademark should be in the mail. All right, now we have our next poll here. So let's assess your current analytical capabilities. This poll asks, what types of questions can your current reporting actually answer? And again, this is multiple choice. And I think if I look at the options, I kind of look at this as a progression. So, if you can do 3 and 4, you can also probably do 1 or 2. And what we typically see is that most companies are stuck at the basic transactional metrics, maybe with some performance context. Maybe you've defined your KPIs, but you're struggling to monitor those KPIs consistently. And I think if you're mostly at the transactional KPI stage, the truth is, I don't think you're alone. I think that strategic jump can come from cross-system KPIs, root cause insights, and then eventually predictive analytics. This is really where we focus.
Yeah, it's a lot of work to get to that point in predictive analytics. And I see Charlie's question about what insights or dashboards are already pre-built. So those dashboards are actually the easy part. It's getting the company to ready on the back end. That's the hard part, and we can talk about that a little later.
Mm-hmm. This is very, we lost the poll, but that one's really interesting. Oh, thanks, Cedric. I would say based on in prior polls, more people were focused or in the first 2 range. I would say this group is spread out around all of the options. So very interesting.
Very cool.
This group doing a little bit more in those predictive analytics, strategic insights. So I'd be curious from the group, really, how they've been able to solve some of those challenges. What are some of the issues in terms of doing that consistently? But really interesting. Thanks, everyone. So now that we know where we're at, and it sounds like the audience is doing some pretty interesting and sophisticated things, which is great. We'll talk a little bit about how we solve this with our Themis data management platform. And it's kind of, again, goes back to some of the questions we've had. Themis is not another dashboard tool. Themis is a managed data warehouse built on top of your existing systems. And the reason for that is that causes no disruption to your current workflows or processes. So your departments continue to operate as they are. But then we help you create that single source of truth across those systems and across those departments. So again, as Henry said, we talk about kind of that magical 3 number of systems. We help you connect to at least 3 or more of your systems to create, a centralized, standardized data platform. And then ultimately, we support this with our data service desk, which is a single point of contact. So our team becomes your team for all levels of your data expertise and requirements. Everything from the data admin to the data engineers, all the way up to the data architect. Ultimately, what that means, though, is you don't need to build that $2 million plus enterprise data team in-house. We provide that to you. And ultimately, after you do all these things, this all funnels up into an actionable AI-enabled business intelligence platform where you're making informed decisions with real-time insights, not waiting for monthly close processes. It's real-time, trustworthy, that you as executives and decision makers can act on. And I think the key to this approach is it eliminates a lot of the data disparities and version control issues. We layer on top of what you already use and give you that foundation, which, as we're going to get to in a little bit, is strong enough to start layering on AI on top of it.
Yeah. The origin of this architecture came from working directly with CEOs, CFOs, and COOs. What we find is that they don't want to be super admin users of any system. That'll typically take them months to get used to and get training on. So they wanted it to be fast, just like ChatGPT. They don't have the data ops team to make all of that data normalization and data transformation happen. And so we had to integrate AI and our data service desk offering together to make it super easy with no administrative requirements.
So we'll walk you through a real world case study that highlights how Themis delivers results. So one of our clients, it's a private equity roll up. They spent over 9 months trying to unify their reporting with NetSuite and Power BI. Unfortunately, the complexity of their GL, their general ledger hierarchy, and some of the fragmented systems they were using made this cross-department, cross-subsidiary reporting nearly impossible. So to fill that gap, they turned to consultants and manual reports in Excel. And it led to a lot of reporting delays, high overhead, and ultimately the management team was kind of flying blind. They really didn't have visibility into the business the way that they were hoping to. So phase one of our work really focused on building that centralized data warehouse directly from the NetSuite. We were able to preserve a lot of the hierarchy that existed in the data source. We customized KPIs by the subsidiary, and then we automated a lot of the core reporting. So P&L reporting, variance analysis, those real-time KPIs to better understand, the important business metrics. And we did that and defined it within each subsidiary. And that ultimately eliminated a lot of the Excel work and replaced a large portion of the consultant spend. And then now in phase two, we're integrating their CRM and the marketing data. So we get that full funnel visibility. It's going to connect customer behavior and campaign performance and vendor impact back to the financial outcomes that we identified in phase one. And then layering AI on top, it's starting to accelerate a lot of the insights and reduce the time it takes to get from that question to answer. There's always a great example we get where you're sitting in a boardroom and you want to ask a question of the data, that our AI generated insights actually enable that. So what used to take weeks of manual effort now takes seconds. And I think the return that we talk about there kind of speaks for itself. So over 5 times ROI from eliminating a lot of the failed reporting efforts and a lot of consultant spend, and ultimately just a much better user experience, enabling faster, better decision-making across the entire organization.
Yeah. This is the most common problem we see in mid-sized companies when they have BI and they're trying to have BI fix back-end data transformation problems. So it took this client 6 months to figure out the reports they were looking to implement couldn't be done on Power BI, and they were trying to customize their NetSuite to be able to do a lot of the back-end data transformation. And it's not the BI admin's fault. I mean, they're just doing what they can with the tools, knowledge they have. So you need enterprise data tools and an enterprise team, both of which are baked into our subscriptions.
I'm going to take a quick pause here. We have a question I just want to address. You mentioned NetSuite. We use Sage on servers and Xero in the cloud for accounting. Can Themis create intelligence from these two sources? The short answer is yes. The long answer is, we can dive into how we do that, but we can do on-prem gateways into on-prem servers to pull data that way. And then we have a lot of automated ingestion tools for something like Xero or other accounting systems. Ultimately, we can basically connect to just about any system, but we would be happy to kind of walk through that individually. All right. Now we've been mentioning AI and how to build an AI-ready data layer quite a bit. And we're going to drill into that in a second. But before we talk about AI solutions and our AI solutions specifically, I think there's a critical distinction we need to address. And that's the difference between public large language models and private large language models. Now, public large language models answer in generalities based on internet scale training data. They're great for general knowledge, writing help. They can even help you with coding. These are your ChatGPTs, your Claudes, your Geminis of the world. They're really good, and they've added on a lot of tools that make them seem like magic sometimes. But ultimately, they don't actually have any business context. And there's also some security concerns around, if you do connect them to your data, or if people are inputting really, your private data into those systems. Whereas private large language models, on the other hand, are typically, they can be fine-tuned to your company's data, but they run in your own environment. They provide business answers based on your actual business data and logic, because they have the ability to retrieve or pull that information. And they're going to be secure and auditable by typically existing within your own ecosystem or an ecosystem that you control. The trade-off, however, is they require setup and maintenance, but that's a solution like ours comes in. So I think this distinction is really crucial because most AI implementations fail because they're trying to use general purpose AI for very business specific problems. And that's where you really need to bring in private AI.
Yeah. Yeah, we see a lot of companies failing. They're trying to use general purpose AI and bringing it into an enterprise environment, even if it's a, a, a an environment where there hasn't been a lot of data maturity in it. That makes it even worse. And you introduce automations to that type of environment, then you start getting a lot of bigger problems. Even the enterprises are struggling with large language model public AI, right? Because it's just really hard to audit, govern, and control because it's built to do very general public things for a lot of people, and so there's granular controls that don't exist in those type of systems. But without getting into the enterprise side of the AI issues, if you really want to get accurate results with anything, any form of automation, doesn't matter, it's AI, machine learning, RPA, doesn't matter. You need to have your data correct and normalized, and everyone to agree on it first before you automate anything.
Thanks, Henry. This brings us to kind of the idea of AI readiness. AI is only as good as the data foundation you build. So large language models that we talked about, especially public ones, will amplify both good insights and bad data. So you need to get that foundation underneath correct first. And from a business perspective, AI needs context from integrated systems. And these static reports or static spreadsheets aren't going to really feed the dynamic AI. You need to give it constant updated information. So the path starts with that clean, connected data foundation, or your single source of truth, which we talked about. And then from there, you can start to do some really, really exciting stuff like AI-powered insights. So this is natural language querying. You can do anomaly detection, real-time generation of dashboards. Then you can move towards predictive analytics, so forecasting what's likely to happen. And then finally getting to prescriptive analytics, which is a little bit different, which is now recommending what actions to take based on what you're seeing both in the data and in those forecasts. So only after steps 1 and 2, the clean data foundation and the AI-powered insights, can you start to deliver value from steps like 3 and 4. And AI is definitely a journey with different levels of maturity. But as we like to talk about, the data foundation is the first step.
Yeah, we're finding a lot of companies wanting to do agentic AI and not having the data right. And you really have to start with that step 1 first and get that out of the way.
Mm-hmm. Which brings us to Themis AI, which creates your own secure private AI environment built on your data for your teams. You get 3 really important capabilities. First, a private secure environment where all your structured and unstructured business data is clean, normalized, and accessible in a secure AI workspace. So, and again, that's customized to your organization's data. Second, you can prompt this via natural language for real insights. So this will query your data, interpret it, build dashboards and reports, and then you can see all of the data lineage for how that information was created. So this is a big issue within AI systems, one that we see happen time and time again, sometimes with some really negative effects out there in the world. But this reduces a lot of the AI hallucination concerns that a lot of AI struggles with. And then third, we can build this on top of today's best large language models and kind of interchange those models depending on, the right tool for the right task. So you don't have to worry about being beholden to any one ecosystem. And the great news about this is you can do that today. So we can start building and tailoring your metrics and your reports to your team's needs right away. So what does this look like in practice? What used to take weeks of analyst time now takes seconds. We have kind of our Gen AI feature in the background playing it pretty fast speed. So it is sped up a little bit there for you just to kind of identify what it does. But what you can see here is you'll see natural language business questions. It generates dashboards automatically. It has strategic recommendations and insights included. And all of this is generated in under 5 seconds from query to result. There's also the AI learns about the structure of your data, so we'll suggest questions that you can ask. So it's very intuitive. And really this takes, transforms your data from sometimes a reporting bottleneck into that real strategic advantage. So instead of waiting weeks for analysis and going back and forth with dashboard creation, you get answers in seconds. And behind the scenes, Themis is using AI to triage a lot of the data challenges that you may encounter. So you don't waste time or waste months fixing problems manually. We're able to surface issues instantly across your different CRMs, ERPs, CSVs, etc. We can generate diagnostics reports that highlight unused fields, inconsistencies, gaps, all of that. And ultimately what that leads to is we're going to develop or deliver to you an AI data readiness roadmap that shows exactly what to fix to get your data AI ready. And this AI-powered foundation means you move faster toward cleaner dashboards, more accurate forecasting, and a clear path to this concept of private AI without the typical data firefighting that you have to go back and do when you just try to throw AI at the problem.
This is really interesting solution that we have, because even with the larger enterprise companies that have a lot of cool tools, Snowflake, Databricks, what we're finding is they're automating a bunch of AI, a lot of data workflow in silos, and they don't realize that what are the inconsistencies between the departments until they do an assessment like this. Oftentimes there's a lot of data that just needs to be reformatted, transformed in order for more of the cross-departmental KPIs and initiatives to really take fold. So this is a pretty cool solution we put together specifically around AI challenges.
So what we found is that most companies know they want to use AI. And we get this kind of question a lot. I want to use AI. How do I do it? But they're not entirely sure how AI ready their data is. Or when we really drill down in, we find a lot of inconsistencies or issues. And that's ultimately what our AI data readiness assessment is designed to uncover. So it's a practical guided process that shows you how clean, connected, and usable data, or how clean and connected and usable your data actually is. So, and then how eventually we can use Themis to unify, aggregate, clean, or activate a lot of that data. And the way this assessment works is it's a short engagement, usually 2 or 3 calls over a couple weeks. We start with a free 30-minute intro call where we talk through your current reporting challenges, what systems you're using, whether that's your ERP, your CRM, whether it's spreadsheets, and what your goals are eventually for using AI. So, and then after that, we start the discovery and profiling phase. So we'll analyze a few sample data sources that you may have. We start profiling the data for all of those checks that we talked about: completeness, quality, structure. I think this gives a real baseline of what's working and where gaps exist that we'll have to solve in the process. And finally, we'll deliver to you a custom report and engagement summary and review that together in a working session. So you'll get a summary and a clear look at how Themis can address some of your data challenges, both at the foundational level as well as when you want to start using AI. And then, of course, pricing and custom roadmap showing you how to move from that manual reporting or where you're currently at today to where you want to go, which is automated AI-driven insights. And ultimately, our goal here is really simple: to give you a tangible, data-driven plan from getting from where you are now to AI-ready reporting. Okay. So we went a little bit longer than we usually do. We usually like to leave 15 minutes for questions. I think we've got 10 minutes here for questions. But this is where we'd love to get into the specifics of everyone's situation. If you'd like to pop in some questions, I think, Henry, we need to go through and find some. There's been quite a few that have come in. So if you haven't already, please drop your questions in the chat, and we'll try to address them now. So Henry, do you have any good ones in there? Let me pull this up and see what we can
There's
find.
one from James Hudson. Thanks for your question. His question is, does Themis support forecasting and planning, or is it more for historical reporting? So the goal of our solution is to get to that forecasting and to get to some prediction. And the goal of this is to integrate a lot of different sources, operational sources that are typically in disparate systems, right? Where it's a big challenge to aggregate the data together at scale. Well, what do I mean by at scale? Well, copying and pasting downloaded spreadsheet data and doing that in a spreadsheet can work for small snippets of time. But when you get into forecasting and get into planning, you really want to get a lot of data together and see trends in between seasons, between years, between campaigns, a lot of different things. And so when you want to do analysis at scale, planning at scale, forecasting at scale, you need to download all the data. Let's say the company's 10 years old. You want to get like 5 years. Let's do a trending 5-year analysis of the data from your CRM, from your ERP, from your warehouse management, as much data as you can, and start seeing trends between it all. Now, you try to do that on spreadsheets. That might be a 5 years worth of data, might be a once a year type of thing with the ton of work. But once we get the system's data in, and typically takes us 4 to 6 weeks to get 3 data sources in and normalized and transformed and ready, so that the sales department is looking at the same data that the finance department is, that the operations department is, and getting to a point where they agree, right? Oh yeah, that data looks right. That's the magic. That's really hard to do. It does take consulting. It does take outside resources. Oftentimes these types of alignments, it's hard to do it internally because everyone's so personally opinionated and wanting it to be a certain way. So it takes the more of an outside person to come in and say, hey, here's a better way to do it, just try using this. Are you happy with it? Right? And so that kind of consulting is baked in. We use a lot of templates for it, so that it makes it a lot faster, goes a lot quicker. And then obviously the AI tools, the machine learning tools, the RPA tools, all of that is wrapped around this container that we've built. It's all the same tools that are in AWS and GCP, Google, that all the enterprises are doing at very, very large companies. All of those tools are available for all of our customers.
Awesome. I'm going to take a couple of different questions here. So I just want to revisit and say, how is Themis different from using Power BI or Tableau on top of spreadsheets? Great question. The real difference is those spreadsheets are typically one-time manual pulls. Themis is going to have a recurring ingestion into a data warehouse. And then that data warehouse is going to manage and handle all of the transformations around that data. So when you're dealing with a few spreadsheets, one, the data becomes static and old very quickly, and then it's difficult to refresh. It's going to be very simple in terms of what type of data you're bringing in. You'll have to do a lot of that kind of manual matching and aggregation, et cetera, at that spreadsheet level. So it's going to be really limiting. And ultimately, when we talk about bringing in multiple sources, 3 or more, that's going to all of a sudden get really difficult to do in spreadsheets. Whereas Themis, we pull in all that information automatically, near real time. The transformations happen at the data warehouse. So then what you see on the visualization layer, because Themis at the visualization side and Power BI probably will look and feel somewhat similar, but there's so much going on in the background. It's kind of like the iceberg example. There's a lot happening underneath the surface of the water that's helping you to get a consistent, accurate metrics and reporting going forward. And then I think a follow-up to that question was, can Themis help us track and deep dive on marketing ROI or customer churn across channels like Klaviyo and Triple Whale? Absolutely. So we've connected to those systems before. It's really useful to combine or match those systems to your finance system so that you can, again, see some of those fully burdened customer acquisition costs. You can look at churn and start to predict based on different activities of, what's happening in Klaviyo or Triple Whale, how that might actually affect your, financial systems. So great questions. Love those. Those are some really great use cases.
Yeah. And Tim, thanks for joining us. And you had a point about lower middle market, many clients, many CRMs that don't tie into financials. And here's the really good part about Themis is instead of having to get all of those companies to standardize on one CRM, which is the old way of doing things, you could use Themis in between to normalize the reporting of the KPIs and be that sandbox in between to get all the data normalized and standardized without having to get everyone on one system.
I'm gonna pepper in a couple quick ones as well. Let's see. We've got our team is not very technical. How much ongoing support does Themis provide? That's a big part of what the data service desk provides. It is that ongoing technical data support. So you don't need a data team on an ongoing basis. And that's probably a really important distinction for what you may get out in the market elsewhere. That data service desk is going to be that ongoing dashboard creation support, understanding where the data might be going wrong, constantly keeping all of those data feeds and connections live and working so that you don't ever miss any data, which can be really damaging or a problem. So that's where the data service desk really comes in. So you don't have to build that $2 million plus team.
Yeah, and our data service desk is extremely affordable. You'd be surprised. I mean, we're talking, for the full team, that for a large enterprise is $2 million a year, we can get it down to less than half the price of an admin. And the reason why it's so cost effective is because of a lot of automation, a lot of templates, a lot of tools that we have that really makes that team that much more efficient. There was another question that I wanted to get to, which is, yeah, I think that I think the question was, we don't have a full data team, will this work? And that's why we want to focus in the mid-market. The mid-market, typically, we've studied this market for a long time. We've been doing a lot of large enterprise solutions and trying to use large enterprise solutions down into the mid-market. What we found is that in the mid-market, the assumption we had to make is that our clients do not have a data operations team. So tools like Snowflake, Databricks, the difference with them is that they assume that the client has a data team and can use these very sophisticated tools. We assume that they don't. And so, our solution bakes in the actual team so that our client, they don't have to really do anything. From start to finish, getting to those KPIs, getting to those dashboards and reports and operationalizing them, we're going to handhold the client all the way from the beginning of that process to the end report.
I think, Henry, we've got time for one last question. So I'm gonna address Chris Kenny's first. In order to get accurate forecasting for some industries, you need to be pulling public economic data for macro and regional economic trends. Do you have experience with this? And can you give specific examples where you pull public data to enhance private data? I think that's a great question. Yes, we do have experience with that. We have pulled in third-party syndicated data. It does require, though, that data is available to be pulled, meaning not everyone opens up their data with APIs. So as long as that data is accessible and it doesn't violate the terms and conditions, that is something we can do and have done. I would say a really good example of that is pulling in the public syndicated data for benchmarking to compare that against some of what your own business is doing and some of your own metrics. But would love to kind of dive into your use case a little bit more specifically around that. So great use case, really interesting. It can be kind of very industry specific. So we would address it accordingly.
Yeah. And Alejandro, I see your question. Thank you for asking again. It's not multi-language right now, but it is down the road, our plans to. We're focused in the US market right now.
All right. I think we're officially at time, Henry. So I want to thank everyone for joining today and for all of the excellent questions. The key takeaway is you don't need to replace your existing systems to unlock a lot of the exponential value from your data. You just need to connect them properly and build the right foundation. And then that foundation will eventually enable AI-driven insights. So thank you so much. If you want to speak to us further, please reach out to us at sales@3gcgroup.com. Visit the website, or we'll definitely reach out and speak to you if you have any specific questions. All right. Thanks, Henry.
Everyone.
Thanks everyone for